I went by your house, what a big mistake. But for a while I thought that I wouldn't break. I need something else to clear my head. Someone to tell me how to live instead. Just open your eyes and take my advice. Stop rolling the dice and just compromise. It's the chance of your life. Okay, try to be brave. You have so much to say. Take control of your own life. Right now, every mistake makes you feel like a fake. Take control of your own life. Without any thought, I keep moving on. I don't even care if my soul is gone. So many words that I should have said. Not concerned about how to live instead. Just open your eyes and take my advice. Stop rolling the dice and just compromise. It's the chance of your life. Okay,
Welcome to Cyber Threat Intel, your go-to source for the latest updates, news, and insights on cyber threats. Our goal is to arm you with the knowledge to protect yourself in the digital age, whether you're a cybersecurity professional or just curious about the threats lurking in the digital shadows. Make sure to subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast listening platform to join us on the front lines of cybersecurity, because in the world of cyber threats, knowledge is power. Hey. This is episode 10 of Cyber Threat Intel. My name is John Good, and I'm your host. This is April 2nd, 2024. I want to thank you for joining. If you're joining live, if you're watching the live stream, happy to have it either way. Check out the show. If you are joining us for the first time, typically what we do is we take a few minutes to just let people hop on, give people time to kind of settle in, and grab a drink, grab a snack, anything like that that you need to get through the show. And we will then jump into the articles and the headlines after that. So depending on where you are listening to the show, watching the show, there are a few different ways you can find the show if you're interested in a specific type of way of viewing the show or getting the content. First way is if you are wanting to see a video or live stream. We do the live stream definitely on YouTube. Right now we are testing out other platforms, so LinkedIn, Twitter or X, Facebook, and then of course, again, LinkedIn. All of those are on the John Good Cyber platform. So John Good Cyber YouTube channel, John Good Cyber LinkedIn profile, the John Good Cyber Twitter or X profile, and the John Good Cyber page on Facebook. So you can see the live streams on all those right now. If we continue to have a great turnout on all those platforms, which we've been having a lot of people join all those different platforms, then we'll continue to do all the platforms. Otherwise, we will always be available on YouTube. That's kind of the home base, if you will, for this content. If you're interested in listening to audio version, so a podcast version, then you can go to any of your favorite podcasting platforms, your Spotify, your iTunes, whatever else, right? Like there's a whole bunch of them that you can listen to podcasts on, but we're available on all of those as well. So you can just go there to your platform and search for Cyber Threat Intel, and you can find us there. Or you can go to cyberthreatintel.com, which is our website. That will list all the different platforms that we're on with the direct links, so you can go directly to your favorite platform. Or you can also get the article feed for the Cyber Threat Intel shows. So all the articles that we're going to cover, we're going to talk about, all of them are accessible on that feed. You can see those as they are updated, as they're added. You can see the highlights, notes, anything like that you want to see for those. You can also see the previous episode articles, as well as articles that are added that are not part of the show. So just because we cover certain articles on the show does not mean that is all the articles that you should be aware of, but we typically pick the most relevant articles for the show. But then there are also other articles that are in that feed that you can check out as well, and that we put in there that are worth reading and being aware of. So keep that in mind, depending on what you're looking for. If you're watching the replay or live or anything like that, then those are all different ways you can do it. If you have professional certifications, remember that you can claim half a CPE or a CEU, whatever certification that you have calls it, right? But those are credits to maintain your certifications. So educational credits, things like webinars and stuff like that you have to do on a regular basis to maintain those certifications, half a CPE. So basically any certification that you have, you'll be able to maintain just by showing up to these live streams. So that is key. Now, with that being said too, always recommend to put a message in the chat at least, so that way there is evidence that you showed up just in case you were to get audited, because obviously sometimes people get audited for those because they try to, cheat the system. So they want to make sure and keep people honest. So that is always a good way to make sure that you kind of cement yourself in the episode, just like a guest book, right? Same kind of idea. So half a CPE each. So we still have some people jumping on here. So we'll let that go for another minute or two here. Also, something else that I want to bring up that I talked about yesterday is we do have Cyber Threat Intel merch. So if you can see that, have a pretty cool design for Cyber Threat Intel for some of this merch. I also have the shirt on here. So same design. I think it's a pretty cool design myself. And you can pick up that merch as well. You can if you check out the description, there is a link to that merch, so you can get it on there. Or if you're watching on YouTube, there's actually a thing right below the video, a shelf, where you can see a lot of the different designs, because there is other stuff other than just Cyber Threat Intel stuff. But definitely cool design for the merch. So with that being said, we're going to take a second to hop on over and talk about our sponsors real quick, and then we'll get into the articles. So I'll see you on the other side. Are you tired of overpaying for cybersecurity training? Are you interested in training from industry professionals? Are you looking for cybersecurity career services? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then cybertrainingpro.com is the perfect platform for you. At Cyber Training Pro, we're a one-stop shop for all your cybersecurity needs. We can train you for industry certifications or just improve your overall knowledge and skills in a certain area. Unlike other platforms, we don't stop there. We can also coach you throughout your career, practice your interview skills, or create a high-performing resume with our career services. CybertrainingPro.com isn't just another training platform. Students get exclusive access to our private community, where we go beyond training courses to provide additional content, tips and tricks, and engagement with both other students and staff. Look, by the year 2025, there could be as many as 3.5 million job openings in cybersecurity. There's so much opportunity, why not maximize your career potential with a platform that cares about your success? Come join us at cybertrainingpro.com and start building your future today. All right. Thanks again to our sponsor, cybertrainingpro.com. That's where I put all my training. That's where I put career services, all those things. And you can go on there, sign up, get your resume reviewed, whatever you want, right? Like there's a whole bunch of different services and offerings on Cyber Training Pro, and definitely worthwhile to check out if you're trying to get into cybersecurity or if you're already in cybersecurity, right? Lots of different use cases for that. If you are a company and you're stumbling upon this show and you want to sponsor content, make sure to check out the description, because there is more information about how you can initiate sponsorship and how you can get in contact with us to sponsor content. So we love having sponsors, helps keep all this stuff going, and supports all the content that we create for people so they don't have to pay for it, right? So that's always good. So with that being said, we are going to go ahead and hop on over to my screen here, and we'll jump into the first article. All right. So first article here, establishment of the Office of the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Cyber Policy. Have you heard about this? This is a pretty interesting one. As directed in the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023, the Department of Defense established the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Cyber Policy, the ASDCP, and the Office of the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Cyber Policy, OASDCP, on March 20th, 2024. The ASDCP will be the senior official responsible for overall supervision of DoD policy for cyber operations. The ASDCP will be under the authority, direction, and control of the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, the USDP. In addition, ASDCP serves concurrently as the Principal Cyber Advisor, so the PCA, Government loves their abbreviations. And in that role, acts as the principal advisor for the Secretary of Defense on military cyber forces and activities. The Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Cyber Policy, DASDCP, and Deputy Principal Cyber Advisor, DPCA, report through the ASDCP. That is a lot of acronyms. Oh boy. It also says the Secretary of Defense has designated Miss Ashley Manning, a career member of the Senior Executive Service, as the official performing the duties of the ASDCP until such time as an individual is nominated by the President, confirmed by the Senate, and appointed to the position. The President has nominated Michael Solmeyer, who is currently serving as the Principal Cyber Advisor to the Secretary of the Army, to be the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Cyber Policy. The ASDCP is responsible to the Secretary of Defense, Deputy Secretary of Defense, and USDP for all matters related to cyber-related activities that support or enable DoD missions in, through, and from cyberspace, including but not limited to, and then it gives some different things here: developing, coordinating, assessing, and overseeing the implementation of DoD cyberspace policy and strategy, overseeing and certifying cyberspace operations budget, monitoring programs and activities associated with the implementation of cyberspace workforce, overseeing integration of cyberspace operations and capabilities, developing DoD cyberspace policy guidance, leading the DoD implementation of national level cyberspace policies, leading the development, implementation, and oversight of cyberspace, blah, 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 security cooperation. There's a lot of responsibilities here for this. And then also exercising authority, direction, and control over the official designated as Deputy PCA with respect to the official's Deputy PCA duties. So essentially creating this new position. And I think the key here is that when any position like this is created, that requires them to essentially be approved, right? So let's see here. Where did it say that? So it has to, right here. Okay, so official performing the duties until the time they're nominated by the President, confirmed by the Senate, and appointed to the position. So whenever there are those level of restrictions, that definitely gets a certain type of candidate, right? So keep that in mind with even just a normal job hiring process. The more restrictions or more approvals that you require in order to, actually put somebody into a position, you are restricting who can be in that position, good or bad, right? And it's going to be up to those people as far as, who can fill that position and who they deem worthy. And so that, again, that can be good or bad, but if you put in barriers, that is going to shape who fills a position. So whether that's an entry-level position, whether that is a senior-level position, a lead position, a manager, director, a chief information security officer, whatever, right? All those positions. And CyberWarrior894 says, best way to catch up on the cyber news. I agree. Great times, great times. Love hanging out and doing this stuff, right? Keeps us all accountable, keeps us all informed about what's going on. So really good stuff. So definitely a new position. It's interesting to see the government taking a more aggressive stance or more assertive stance with hiring these kinds of positions or creating these kinds of positions, right? Because as you create positions, it shows that you're serious to some extent, right? That you're willing to invest resources into a certain role or certain department, certain team, right? Investment and where you put your dollars always speaks loud, right? Because that speaks to what your priorities are, because that's where you're spending money. Next article here. Poland launches inquiry into previous government spyware use. Poland has launched an investigation into its previous government's use of the controversial spyware Pegasus. It's back. With a parliamentary inquiry underway and the possibility of criminal charges being brought against former government officials in future. Adam Bodnar, Poland's new justice minister, told The Guardian that in coming months, the government would notify people who were targeted with Pegasus. Under Polish law, they would then have the possibility of seeking financial compensation and becoming party to potential criminal proceedings. So they're going to tell people if they were targeted, right? That's pretty interesting. Typically, we don't hear about that. On the possibility of future legal actions, he added, we don't know who will be accused if the investigation goes into the direction of accusing some persons, some ministers, or officers of the security services. Pegasus is a powerful tool designed by Israeli company NSO Group. It is capable of taking control of a target's mobile phone, accessing data from secure messaging apps, and even turning the device into a recorder. So if you haven't heard me talking about Pegasus or you don't know what it is, it's really one of the most popular and most talked about spyware pieces of software, right? And there's been all kinds of articles, especially in the last several years, about Pegasus. And typically, right, it's been said that governments are the ones that have to buy Pegasus. Can't just be some random individual that goes to try to buy a license key, right? Has to be government. But there are governments getting in trouble because they are buying the software and they're going after certain people. They're going after politicians. They're going after reporters. They're going after certain people or certain groups of people to spy on them, right? To track what they're doing. Now, obviously, there is Pegasus, which is a commercial software that is bought. But then you also have governments that are getting in trouble in general for spying on people or doing things that they shouldn't, right? Or I guess things that are within the loopholes. We talked about a loophole yesterday where the US government was going to buy data from companies and to be able to track them, right? And they were just purchasing it instead of having to go get a warrant. So, spying is always going to be at the top of the list as far as things that we talk about that we're just going to frequently talk about it, right? It's always a thing. Let's see here. And that's pretty much it for this article. There is more stuff in here, but as far as spying in general, it's one of those things where, again, there's so much controversy around it, and Pegasus especially, because again, these countries are just buying it and they're using it against their people. So I don't want to dive too much into that. There's a lot of articles out there about Pegasus. Go check them out for sure. FTC, Americans lost $1.1 billion to impersonation scams in 2023. Impersonation scams in the U.S. exceeded $1.1 billion in losses last year, according to statistics collected by the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, a figure that is 3 times higher than it was in 2020. The agency compiled the data based on 490,000 reported scams in 2023. Of these, 330,000 were for business impersonation complaints, and the rest represent government impersonation incidents. According to the agency, most of the scams were conducted via phone calls, currently in decline, followed by email and text messages, which are on the rise for the 3rd year in a row. So it shows this graph, which I think is really interesting, actually. So it has phone call, email, text, and other methods, right? So you can see this red line here. And if you're listening on the audio, there is an actual graph image of these attacks and the breakdown of the percentage based on the type of attack. But essentially, there is a red line that starts very high compared to everything else, and that's phone calls. And then it decreases significantly from 2020. So in 2020, it says it was 67%. Now in 2023, it was 32%. So it is a drastic decline. And then we have email and text and other methods, which similarly, if we're looking at email, it was 10% and now it's 26%. So that is a huge spike. And then text messages were 9% and now they're 14%. So that is definitely an increase as well, slightly less, obviously, but still definitely a decent size increase. And we've been seeing that in a lot of the articles that we've been talking about, as well as other articles that are out there, because phone calls are just one of those things that people don't always answer anymore, right? Like phone call scammers, that used to be a thing, honestly, where like everybody would get these calls, they would answer them, they would get all these high charges, or they would do whatever the people said, and there's all kinds of issues, right? Now we're seeing a lot more email scams come through. We're seeing like eBay scams and money order scams and like all these things, right? Tax refund scams, all that kind of stuff. You see the stuff coming through text messages for like selling houses and whatever, right? Like all kinds of stuff, all kinds of random stuff. But, I think that's a shift in attackers' techniques and kind of adopting adapting with what is happening over time, right? Because we're just starting to use those methods more and more. Now it says the top 5 scam types the FTC highlights are, and then it lists them. So we'll go through these here real quick. Copycat account security alerts. So scammers send fake alerts about unauthorized account activity. We've seen that a lot, I'm sure. I'm sure you've seen that a lot. I've seen that for sure. Phony subscription renewals. So email claims a subscription you never had is renewing, coaxing you into a refund scam that involves returning over refunded amounts via gift cards. So basically you pay and then like, oh no, like you pay too much. Here's a refund. Or we paid you too much. We need to get some of that back. So please send it this way, right? Like that's kind of how it works. Fake giveaways, discounts, or money to claim. Scam offers bogus discounts or giveaways from known brands, leading you to buy gift cards or send money to claim to non-existent offers. Bogus problems with the law. Impersonators claim that you're implicated in a crime. We saw that several years ago. There was a huge one. I think it was with the FBI, saying that like we have taken over your computer or whatever, right? Like, you know. But and then the 5th one is made up package delivery problems, fraudulent messages from carriers about delivery issues. I've definitely seen this one. Aiming to steal credit card information or account details under the pretense of resolving a delivery problem. And so those are the 5. It says simultaneously that FTC announced today that new impersonation rules are coming into effect. These rules aim to give the agency enhanced capabilities to pursue scammers in federal court for civil penalties and restitution. So good, right? Like these scammers are just causing so much havoc. And I don't know if you've seen it too, like on YouTube and those kind of platforms, there are people that actually like record their interactions with scammers while they are essentially trolling the scammers and just like messing with them. And some of them are kind of interesting, especially when the scammers realize they're being, you know, being messed around with, and then they start freaking out. Those are always fun, right? So definitely, yeah, scammers are always going to be there, right? Doesn't matter what it is. There's always going to be some kind of scammer out there. Next article, FCC to probe grave weaknesses in phone network infrastructure. Federal Communications Commission, FCC, says it's taking action to address significant weaknesses in telecommunication networks that can enable cybercrime and spying. The agency is investigating how vulnerabilities in the protocol signaling system number 7, SS7, and diameter, which jointly enable phone calls and text messages, movements across networks, can allow breaches, particularly by revealing consumers' locations to malicious hackers and spies. SS7 and diameter are not outfitted with technology needed to properly encrypt the traffic they handle. Agency and telecom experts say Americans are particularly exposed to hacks while roaming networks. So I think that is, you know, an important distinction, right? When you're roaming on different networks and, you know, using these different towers and all these technologies are being used, but they can't properly encrypt that traffic. You know, that is just like a storm of disaster, right? The agency's actions announced last week is an important move to address a problem that affects both small and large providers, said Harold Feld, an FCC expert who is a senior vice president at the advocacy group Public Knowledge. There's a quote here: given the sensitivity of geolocation information, it is extremely important for the commission to know whether providers are taking the necessary precautions to protect subscribers, Field said via email. The commission should not simply wait until a massive problem surfaces. So I think, you know, phone communications, mobile communications, there's a lot of just concern with that in general because of how connected we are today, right? And obviously with phones, basically every one of them now has a GPS in it. So yeah, you could track specific individuals. That's certainly a concern, right? Especially if it's a foreign government or, you know, somebody hacking into a network, whatever, right? I think that's always going to be a concern because it's not, in a sense, you're not like totally anonymous, right? Like if they can identify your device, because typically you have a specific device ID or a IMEI, I think it is, right? Like it's the device ID though, and it's tied to, your phone number, and it'll show your location, obviously, because it's going to show where you're connected, right? So I think that is certainly a concern. Commission's Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau is spearheading the effort. The FCC said it wants to ensure the protocol's vulnerabilities can't allow hackers to track consumer locations through their mobile devices. So with this article specifically, it's very concerned about that ability to track somebody, right? We see a lot of privacy regulations out there in general. Again, we talked about this several times. In the United States, it's not as restrictive as it would be, for instance, in Europe or some other places. But certainly, we're starting to get some more regulations. We've seen Maryland recently starting to put legislation into place, California, a lot of these different states in the United States. So it is interesting to see how this thing is evolving, right? And how privacy is becoming more and more of a concern in areas that it hasn't necessarily been in the past. But it's one of those things that it's just going to continue to increase, right? Privacy is not going away. Again, we've talked about this too, that companies, they get too much data, right? They over collect data. We talked about data minimization a few episodes ago. And it's just one of those things, right? There's a lot of data out there, and it's not clear always how much data companies actually need versus what they collect. So, and Marvin just joined. Hello, Marvin. Amin, hello. Hello to everybody that's watching. Glad to have you here. Next article here. AI hallucinated packages fool unsuspecting developers. Software developers relying on AI chatbots for building applications may end up using hallucinated packages, according to a report from generative AI security startup Lasso Security. Continuing research from last year, Lasso's Bar Lanyadoo demonstrated once again how large language model LLM tools can be used to spread software packages that do not exist. Threat actors, he warned last year, could learn the names of these hallucinated packages and create malicious ones with the same names could be downloaded based on recommendations made by AI chatbots. To check the repetitiveness of hallucinations, the researcher used 20 questions with zero-shot hallucinations. The model recommended a hallucinated package in the first answer. All chatbots delivered more than 20% of hallucinations, with Gemini peaking at 64.5% of hallucinations. The repetitiveness was of around 15%, with Cohere peaking at 24.2%. The most worrying aspect of the research, however, is the fact that the researcher uploaded an empty package that has been downloaded over 30,000 times based on AI recommendations. That's pretty scary, right? Furthermore, the same package was found to be used used or recommended by several large companies. So I think that in general, right, whenever you are using a chatbot, whenever you're using a search engine, anything like that, it's always a concern, the information that it produces, right? Is that information reliable? Are the users of that system, are they actually vetting that information and confirming that it's the accurate information that they need? A lot of times I think with AI, especially lately, that is not the case, right? A lot of people are not vetting necessarily all the information that they're receiving from AI or chatbots and things like that. And it's creating this kind of weird situation where some things are accurate, some things are not. And then we also see things like Reddit, right? We talked about this, I think it was last week, where they are going to start selling user-generated content to these AI learning language, these LLM companies, right? So they're going to use that to train their AI bots. So it's AI is such a mess right now. Cyber Warrior says, I feel like AI may create a lot of vulnerabilities in code in the next decade. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, we've seen it where, not everything that it spits out for like code or anything that is more kind of concrete is always accurate, right? And a lot of these models are not trained up to today. They're trained like up to like a couple years ago. So it's always going to be a concern, I think, with AI. We're not going to have these like learning computers like you see in Terminator, right? But yeah, I mean, AI is becoming definitely something that more and more companies, more and more users are using. And it does have some value, right? Like it can certainly be helpful. But on the flip side, it can be dangerous and it can be harmful too, right? If you're not using it right, if you're not validating information that it's providing, there's all kinds of issues, right? And then if you're putting your company's data in there or sensitive data into an AI bot, is it storing it? Is it using that to learn things, right? If it's learning based on the data you're putting in there and you put in sensitive data, does it now know about that data and it's going to, use that to make other answers or provide other information to other users? Those are some concerns, right? For sure. Next article here, Google to delete records from incognito tracking. Google has agreed to delete billions of records and submit to some restrictions on its power to track users under the terms of a proposed legal settlement. The deal aims to resolve a class action lawsuit brought in the US in 2020, which had accused the tech giant of invading people's privacy by collecting user data even when they were browsing in private mode. And I put that in parentheses because I guess it's not really private, right? So, all right, Google. In January, shortly after the two sides announced plans to settle the case, the company updated its disclosures to make it clear that it still tracked user data even when users opted to search privately or using, again, its incognito setting. And that's in quotes again. That mode provides some increased privacy because it does not save the browsing activity to the machine being used. So it doesn't save it to the machine being used, but they do collect that data. So that is, yeah. I told you companies are collecting data whether you like it or not. It had made the block automatic for incognito users shortly after the lawsuit was filed in 2020 and has agreed to ensure that limit is in place for 5 years according to the terms of the settlement deal filed on Monday in federal court in San Francisco. So they're trying to keep Google from turning this back on for at least 5 years. On Monday, Google has agreed also to delete hundreds of billions of private browsing data records it had collected, the court filing said. Lawyer David Boies of Boies Schiller Flexner LLP, who represented users in the fight, called the deal a historic step in requiring honesty and accountability from dominant technology companies. The lawsuit had claimed that despite its suggestions to the contrary, Google had tracked users' activity even when they set the Google Chrome browser to incognito mode and other browsers to private mode. So essentially, Google got caught trying to collect a whole bunch of data on users under the context that the browser mode was private, was incognito, that things weren't being tracked. So technically, though, they're also saying it's not tracked on the system that you're using. So it's not tracked on your computer, but we definitely track it in our servers, right? It's things like this where you have to be so careful with the kind of data that you provide or that you input because, can you trust companies when they say one thing, right? Can you? I mean, maybe not, right? Depends on what it is, depends on the type of data, right? There are always concerns, and there always should be concerns with who you're giving data to. And that's why you have to just be very careful. You have to do your due diligence as far as, the security of your vendors, the security of the companies that you're sharing information with, that you're doing business with, because these kind of things can happen, right? It's not, it's not out of the ordinary for a company like this to be very strict with their legal language and have kind of loopholes that allow them to do whatever they need to do. So collect data or whatever, right? Because they're probably in this situation, I'm sure they're using this data to train the Google machine, right? The Google search engine, and create all those results and rankings and all of that stuff, right? That's pretty reasonable to assume. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting to see so many consumers that are fighting back when it comes to some of this stuff, right? When it comes to data collection and protecting your privacy and what companies are allowed to collect. I think we're going to start seeing more and more regulations. This is going to be a continuing trend around privacy and what companies are allowed to collect, what they're allowed to store, how long they're allowed to store it, right? All of these kinds of things, the opt-in process or opt-out process. And yeah, I think we're going to keep on seeing this, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. So very interesting articles today. So with that being said, that is the last article for today. Couple closing things here. If you are looking to watch the video or the live stream of this show, so maybe you're listening on podcasting platform, we are available on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter or X, and Facebook. So this episode is being streamed to all of those. All of that is on the John Good Cyber page. So my John Good Cyber profile, John Good Cyber YouTube channel, John Good Cyber Twitter X account, and John Good Cyber Facebook page. So you can find the video format or live stream format on there for the replay. Or if you want to join live, then we do these live too. So you could join that for the next show. If you want to listen to the audio podcast format, then you can search on any of the popular podcasting formats and search for Cyber Threat Intel, and you'll be able to see the show there as well. And if you go to cyberthreatintel.com, you can see all the platforms that we're on as well. So it lists it all on there. You can also find the feed for the articles on cyberthreatintel.com. So you can see all the articles that we covered today, as well as articles from other episodes and other articles that have been added that are not covered in the show. And they are also worth reading and being aware of. So that's a really good aspect as well. And last but not least, make sure to get your Cyber Threat Intel merch. So we have mugs, we have shirts, and you can find that in the link in the description or below the video on YouTube. And if you're a company and you're interested in sponsoring content, make sure to check out the description and see more information how you can initiate those conversations to sponsor content. We always appreciate sponsors. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for hopping on here, watching the replay, whichever way that you're watching, listening, and really appreciate the support. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next one. See you later. Are you tired of overpaying for cybersecurity training? Are you interested in training from industry professionals? Are you looking for cybersecurity career services? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then cybertrainingpro.com is the perfect platform for you. At Cyber Training Pro, we're a one-stop shop for all your cybersecurity needs. We can train you for industry certifications or just improve your overall knowledge and skills in a certain area. Unlike other platforms, we don't stop there. We can also coach you throughout your career, practice your interview skills, or create a high-performing resume with our career services. CybertrainingPro.com isn't just another training platform. Students get exclusive access to our private community where we go beyond training courses to provide additional content, tips and tricks, and engagement with both other students and staff. Look, by the year 2025, there could be as many as 3.5 million job openings in cybersecurity. With so much opportunity, why not maximize your career potential with a platform that cares about your success? Come join us at cybertrainingpro.com and start building your future today.